in Forked River, New Jersey, and we're doing the Bhagavad Gita of Krishna this evening. And as we struggle along our pathway of trying to determine who we are and what we are, I'm going to share something with you tonight. It's quite controversial. And as most of the things that we do here are quite controversial. But this is the ultimate controversy. And through my own recent experiences, I'm beginning to understand it more, and I think beginning to appreciate more the realization of this. I've seen it in the teachings of Jesus. I've seen it in the teachings of Buddha. I've seen it in the teachings of Krishna, and I'll share it with you tonight. And it's a monumental thing to consider. Monumental, beyond anything, and I'll get into it. But I promise you that we'll discuss it. But look at, you have your pages of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if Mary got one, but Mary, they're right up here, 64 and then 65. But we're looking at 64:9. And it says, he who experiences the unity of life sees his own self in all beings, and all beings in his own self, and looks on everything with an impartial eye. The first thing I think is interesting is to note that Krishna does not say in all human beings. He says in all beings. The unity, the oneness. And of course, we have split ourselves asunder with so many different beliefs and denominations and ideas that it's difficult to rationalize all of this thing. You know, you're believing this way, they're believing that way, someplace else is believing another way. And it's very, very, very hard, but I'm stumbling on what is very difficult. And I don't expect you to run up the stairs and shout this because, you know, you'll be placed in a truck. And then they'll say, who taught you such a thing? And you'll say, the guy down there that wears the blue shirt most of the time in the basement at Vito's. Oh, well, yeah, what do you expect? But in Psalm 133:1 it says, behold how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Now, what is the oneness that comes down from this divine presence within you? That's what I wanted to focus on it because I've discussed it with Joan. And as I said, through a situation that I've been experiencing that you know about, I'm beginning now to understand it. It's been a great lesson for me and a great teaching for me. But rather than tell you, I would rather that Jesus tell you. I don't have the page. Somebody can yell it out to me, but I want you to go to the book of John in the Bible. When we talk about this oneness, he who experiences, and let me just write this up here, what Krishna called it, unity of life. And we'd call it oneness. Unity of life. And once I think if you have the courage to accept this, then you'll have to basically really step aside from all life that you're familiar with, all traditions, all concepts, all people, systems of all kinds. And this is what I want you to see. If you got to John chapter 10, did I tell you that? I don't even remember if I told you to go there. Well, I just did. Yell out the page. 875. Okay, page 875 in those little Bibles. And this is what I want you to know. Now, the point being, are you prepared to accept Jesus Christ, or will you cringe from this and say, well, I can't say this because of the fact that the churches and the system and my Aunt Tilly and all of these people will think I'm nuts. Okay? John chapter 10, verse 34. Is it not written in the law, I said You are gods. And if he called them gods unto whom the word came, the scripture cannot be broken. The hardest thing in the world is to take yourself above the identity that systems have created for you of a guilty person filled with fear, resentment, hurt, guilt, all of these things. And Jesus Christ turns around and says, you are gods. Now, you can raise this onto a level of almost a science fiction type of a thing. You are gods. Now, what has happened here to me that I could share with you? And this is the difficult part. And I will, if you'll follow with me, and maybe not tonight, but over a period of time, if you don't run away, and you may, what I am telling you here, not that you are gods, I am prepared to tell you, you are God. Tough. Very difficult. Very shocking, because how are you going to tell the people at home? How are you going to tell your family when they come down to celebrate whatever they 4th of July? Oh, did you know who I am? I am God. Okay? That's unity. That's unity. When this thing called God dwells, it dwells in only one place in the universe, inside. It embodies itself in a human body. It dwells in temples made without human hands. If Jesus is true and God is inside of you, how can you not be God? Let me show you what I did. In trying to deal with myself and the problems that I've experienced in some of the responsibilities here, the job, and so forth, I meditated, I read, I studied. Everywhere I looked, I found that God dwells inside of people, inside of beings. Then I came to the realization, then God cannot punish anybody, as I'm taught by religious people, because if God punished anybody, he'd be punishing himself. Then I said, now wait, I'm beginning to understand here. And all of a sudden I saw the possibilities, if we are ever willing to listen to Jesus, listen to Krishna. When I make decisions for the church, on business, and sometimes I get into shaking because I don't know if I did the right thing, the wrong thing. I don't know. I have discovered now, however, that God does not make any mistakes. Every decision that you make is absolutely correct, if indeed you have chosen the meditational route and then you make your decision. Because if you go into meditation, open yourself to that temple bell and make your decision, what you are now doing is not deciding, you are creating. And this is what I understood. I understood that God can make no mistakes. So I said to Joan, maybe it was a mistake that we canceled CTN and went on the satellite where nobody is calling. It must be a mistake. But Spirit said it cannot be a mistake because God's decision, every single one of them, are perfectly right. Everything then that does not go the way we want it to go is not necessarily wrong. See? Because what we have done is learned. If indeed that is the wrong thing to do, then there is one obstacle taken out of the way of our progress. Because if we did not do it, no matter what we had done, we would be saying, yeah, this is great, but think of what could happen if we did this. So then I understood every decision is right because it is an experience, a lesson, and a realization to us, this does not work. So push that aside, go to that. All of the guilt goes, all of the you made a mistake goes, because you and I do not have to justify ourselves to people. We have to justify ourselves only to that eternal spirit. This is what he's talking about in being with. There is only one thing that separates you from being God. Ego. And ego comes in two sizes. Inflated, I can do it, or deflated. I am nothing, I can't do it, I don't know what, I'm scared to do it, There's two parts of ego. I'm always screwing it up, I'm not going to take any chances, I'm deflated. Or I am in complete control. Those two things. Once ego goes, the door falls and you are God. And then the decisions that you make are always exactly right. And the ego is eliminated as you transcend it in meditation. Then you move and do, and you know it has to be right. Even if somebody says, I think that was a mistake. No, it wasn't. No, it was a lesson. And by learning this lesson, I have removed an obstacle to my progress, and I cast it aside, and I go on. So this here is what Krishna is talking. You can't have it any other way. If Jesus is right and God lives inside of you, John 14:23, then you are God. There is no way that you can change that. If Paul is right and God says, I will walk in them, I will dwell in them, I shall be their God, then God is inside of you. That means inside of you. Inside of you. Then you are God. The only thing that separates us then from being God is ego. Because the reason we cannot, or the people out there cannot contend with you being God, is because of the fact that they have constructed him as an old man on a planet who's got a very short fuse. And you can never understand that this creative power has chosen that God, the entity that is God, is a wisdom, a love, a power, an entity that dwells in a hiding place inside of every being. And you as a human being have the instinctive right to shut down that self, which is the illusion, and then go to the higher self. If we ever find this out, and of course, you know, the first thing you're going to have to do is be very careful. You're going to want to be very careful. You're not going to want to say this to anybody. But what I'm telling you is the most magnificent, the greatest secret in the universe. When you want to know who created the world, you did. You did. You created all things. You did. I did. And when the illusion of the lower self and its fears and its guilt and its hurts is finally pushed aside, the nirvanic doors swing open, you realize that you are God and that you have created all things. But the you is not the instant. It is every single you, every single human being, every single person who exists in the world. But we have not allowed the God who is ready to heal and to reign and to rule in love to exert itself. We have placed the door and slammed it, and so we dwell in the ego, and so we are ego. We are guilty or we are cocky, one or the other. And this unity does not exist. But once you understand that you are God, if you will allow it to be, what is the potential? What is the potential? And do you see how foreign it is for you? You've gotten to so much fakakta. I mean, you could say, how could I? You can't even consider it because all of your life you've been told you're a worthless sinner, you're guilty, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing. You can't even come to grips with this, what I'm saying to you. But you don't have to come to grips with it if you'll simply acknowledge that Jesus said it, Buddha said it, Krishna said it, the whole universe said it, that this thing called God does not exist anywhere but inside of people. It embodies itself inside of human beings. And if then we have the truth, I am already setting about to change my entire world by this, because I don't have to sit anymore, and Joan and I don't have to go back and forth anymore and say, I think this was a mistake. That is out of our vocabulary. It couldn't be, because God made the decision. And simply what it is an experience. And if it did not come out the way God wanted it to come out, then it's an obstacle that we don't have to face anymore, so we move it out of the way. And we then go back into meditation and go to the next one. No more guilt, because it was a right. Every decision, everything you do then is right. And you will look upon it through the lower mind and say, I shouldn't have done that. Yes, you should do that, because if you have gotten that through meditation, and if you meditate, that's where your decisions come from. What you have done is not decided something, you have created something. You say, I've created a monster. Fine, that's an obstacle. Go on to the next one, because you'll know that you won't create that again. That's God. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way. That's why, and as I move through this, and as I live through this, and as I develop through this, and my mind carries me through this, then that's why I told you about Tuesday night. I've been touched inside about a gentle meditation, a meditation of flowers and love and streams, and a meditation to really come into your godness. That is the essence of this. Not to pussyfoot around anymore, trying to, I don't mean that I'm God. I said exactly what I said. I am God because Jesus Christ said so. Buddha said so. Krishna said so. The universe says so. He walks in me. He talks in me. He dwells in me. He is inside of me. And all I have to do is get the ego out of the way, and then I do not decide. I create. And that's what God does. That's the unity of life. Now, knowing that, what is your potential for adventure? What is your potential for... Forget yourself. Forget the lower self. What is the potential once you recognize now the decisions that are made come as the result of God, and that you prosper by them and say every single decision is absolutely necessary? That, I can't go up and tell that to anybody. I can't go up and say to anybody, do you know what, I'm God, or do you know I hear this thing in my head that's directing me to all these things. Do you know what? Do you know that they can make a whistle, and it's so shrill that only a very few people can hear it? Most people can't hear it. But that doesn't mean the whistle didn't make a sound. Only those who could hear it. Do you see what I'm saying? So understand then. Understand what I'm saying. And look at the glory inherent in you. And if you want to say, he's crazy, he's saying he's God, then say you're not. Say you are what you are, and you can continue to suffer, and continue to be in guilt, and continue to be crying, and continue to all the frustrations of trying to fight your battles and fight your way through all of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortunes, the agony of defeat and all of that stuff. Or say you're God, and say, yes, Jesus, I agree with you. Krishna, I agree with you. Buddha, I am God. This is the way it was all planned to be. It is the greatest secret. It is the most magnificent secret in the universe. And now I am beginning to understand. And your ego will try to get in the way, but you'll not allow it to. See, what is it? Go to that page 533 to Psalm 133, verse 1. 133, verse 1. Behold how good and pleasant it is. Did I tell you, page 533? For brethren to dwell together in unity. That's what I'm talking about. It is like the precious ointment upon the head. That's the chrism. You see that? Psalm 133, verse 2. That ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garments, that runs down and fills you, as verse 3 says, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. See, and this is what Krishna is talking about. The life described by Krishna as the essence of God, and described by the Bible as that which flows down, as ointment flows down, oils flow down from the head and consume the body. But don't allow it to be a point of your saying, well, I can be a better person. No, you be God. That's what the mission is. That's what Jesus came to share with you. What did Jesus say? It's not me that does the work, it's the Father that dwells in me. So what was he saying? I'm God. And what did he say to you? The things I do, you can do better. How could you do better than him if he's God? You had to be God too, didn't you? There's no other way. If you really want to believe the Bible, if you really want to believe Jesus Christ said, when you have seen me, you have seen the Father. And he says, you can do as good as him, you can do better. So then you say, here, you see me, you see the Father. Because he's talking about that God which is within you. The real, true part of your nature. And we are doing all the suffering and all the crying and all the guilt when we could allow this to burst forth and become one, become God. In a strange way, difficult it is for you to believe, but you have to believe it in your meditation, and you have to believe it in your spirit, and you have not to be afraid to understand what is available, what are the possibilities, what is the unveiling to you. You experience this unity. And it says in Ephesians 4:3, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Now what did Krishna say? In this, we will see ourselves in all beings. How can we possibly see ourselves in all beings? If you are God, and I am God, and Tommy is God, and Mary is God, and Joan is God. Let's take a look, page 956 in the Bible. Instead of being snotting, snorting, sniveling nincompoops, we're God. I'd much better be God than be all high blood pressure and all fakakta all the time. And here the Bible and every book that's ever been written is trying to tell us it's exactly what you are. What do you think? Do you mean it was somebody that put us down here to run around and blowing up people with guns and all this crazy stuff and crying and snorting and snotting around all the time? No! There's a beauty in it. You're God. Reveal him. He explodes. And even while I'm saying you're God, that's going through, I'm God, I'm shoveling, and she's digging plants, and he's in, this is God, what do I need? I'm emptying kitty litter, God empties kitty litter. Okay? But listen to me. The world is supposed to be restored. It can only be restored by God. Not by you and me in our lower self, but God, who is you and me in our higher self. This is the beauty. This is the great secret. Now, I want to show you, so then how do you recognize, how do we possibly justify the God in each one of us? Page 956. The book of Ephesians, Ephesians chapter 4. What in God's name am I here? God can't read. Here we go. Ephesians chapter 4. All right. Verse 4. Now watch what I'm telling you. There is one body, one Spirit, even as you were called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Come on with me in the next one. One God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. Now I stand here to accept that. I accept the Bible. I accept Jesus Christ. I accept the words of the ancients, that God is in you. Then how could you not be God if he's in you? Whose liver is that in there? Mao Zedong's? That's yours. You say you're chopped liver, whatever you want to be. It's yours. And if God is in you, then God is yours. You're God. How then could you display? How can you make this come alive? And that's what we're talking about. This is what they've been trying to tell you. This is the secret. You're waiting for some God, and it's you. It's like a rose. Could you imagine what's happening in the spring of the year now? The roses are going to come out, right? Now, can you imagine if a rose said, you know what I'd love to be? I'd love to be a rose. It doesn't know what it is. And it opens up, and it smells, and everybody goes by. See, but the rose can't understand English. And all it can hear is like, but what the people are saying, oh, what a beautiful rose. It doesn't know. And the rose is saying, I wish I could be a rose. Because it doesn't know it's a fakakta rose. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Oh, we're saying, oh, we love to see God. Oh, I want to see God. You are God. And the personality that laughs and all that's yours. I understand that. But that holy, secret personality that can explode into life just like the roses. This is me. And so now, and I'm starting to act this out. I really am. I am starting to say, I go to meditation. I lift myself into meditation, the decisions that come down, every single one must be absolutely right. And if you look back on your life, even though there were difficult lessons learned, you'll find out that just about every decision you made was right. And if you say, well, it didn't work out good, but it was a heck of a lesson, and it was an obstacle that you threw out of your path not to make the same mistake again. Think of that. And that's beautiful. So there it is. That's divine consciousness. Let's look at 64:9 again. Seeing all beings in his own self, and looks on everything with an impartial eye. Now let's look at 64:10. He who sees me, my friends, once again, I am, I, me. It is all names of God, because God is who? You. That's why Jesus said, when you have seen me, you have seen the Father. How could a man say that who says, of my own self I can do nothing? How could he possibly say that? Even, you don't have to be a nuclear scientist to say he is conveying something mystically. He is saying, of my own self, lower, I can do nothing. But when you have seen me, you have seen the Father. And then how could he say, when you have seen me, you have seen the Father, and you know what? You can do what I can do, you can do better. Then I must have a me too. A Father, the same Father, the Father in me. Because he said in John 14:23, the Father would dwell in us as well. The Father dwells in us. So he who sees me in everything, and everything in me, him shall never forsake, nor shall he lose me. When you see it, when you're willing to finally see what's coming through and acknowledge it, and take it away from being your ego, either the deflated ego or the inflated ego, but instead you see that which is the me. 64:11, the sage, that's the wise person, who realizes the unity of life, and who worships me, where? Where? In all beings. Not on an altar, not in the sky, who worships me in all beings. Lives in me, whatever may be his lot in the lower. Whatever may be his lot. And then he says in 64:12, oh, Arjuna, he is the perfect saint, who taught by what? The likeness within himself, sees the same self everywhere, whether the outer form be pleasurable or painful. These are tremendous truths. And these are the exact same truths that Jesus Christ tried to share, and Buddha did share. He who sees me in everything, and everything in me. Let us look at that again. He who sees... Let's read that one more time. 64:10. He who sees me in everything, and everything in me, him shall I never forsake, nor shall he lose me. The sage who realizes the unity of life, and who worships me in all beings, lives in me, whatever be his lot. Take a look at page 786 in your Bible. We're going to do some Bible jumping, so, okay, let's get revved up here. Matthew chapter 10. And I want to follow on the words of Krishna with the words of Jesus Christ. Matthew chapter 10, verse 37. He that loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Meaning the expression of life must be me. It must be the God who I am. The I, the me. Okay? Let's go to page 870 and look at the book of John. And go to John chapter 6, verse 44. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. Now this is from the one who said, of my own self I can do nothing. I want you to remember that. That's very pivotal to this type of a dissertation. Jesus Christ did not take any credit upon himself as a person. He's talking about the same I, the I am, and the me that Krishna talked about, okay? You're at page 870. Look at John 6, verse 47. Verily I say unto you, he that believes on me has everlasting life. Remember this now. What you're looking at is tremendous secret, tremendous mysticism, tremendous deep mystical truths that Jesus Christ conveyed, that Krishna conveyed. Krishna has just got done saying to you, what? He said, he who sees me in everything and everything in me shall never forsake nor lose me. Jesus gets done and said, he that believes on me. Look at John 6:57. As the living Father has sent me, I live by the Father, so he that eats me, even he shall live by me. Okay? Now look at page 817 and go to John 8, verse 19. John chapter 8, verse 19. They said unto him, where is the Father? And Jesus said, you neither know me nor my Father. If you had known me, you should have known my Father also. See? But they say, well, we know you. I know you. Hey, you're the guy that... He's not talking about that. He's saying if you know... In other words, what he's saying, if you know yourself. If you know the me in you, you'll know the Father. If you had known me, you should know the Father also. Okay? Now look at John, page 880. John chapter 14 and verse 9. I know a lot of Scripture, but it's important that you just see it. John chapter 14 and verse 9. Have I been with you so long, you have not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. So then how come you say, show us the Father? Because you haven't seen me. See? That's what you have to say. Me. Think of yourself. Me. If I show you me, I show you the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Because the word that they're using, me, is the same as the I am or the I. It is the God who dwells inside of people. John chapter 14, right where you are, verse 21. He that has my commandments and keep them, he it is that loves me. And he that loves me shall be loved of my Father. I will love him. We will manifest and will manifest myself to him. John 15, verse 23. If a man love me, he will keep my words. And my Father will love him. We will come unto him and make our abode with him. John 15, verse 26. The Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, will send in my name. He shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. And then John 17 and verse 21, and that's the last one, right? That they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me, I in thee, that they also may be one in us, and the world may believe that you have sent me. So that's what Krishna is talking about. He that sees me in everything, and everything in me, who worships me, lives in me, he is the perfect saint. And so this is what you've got to really settle down and start to understand. And that's why teachings are so important. Because for the most part, we go through meditation, and we go through meditation, and we go through meditation, and we say Om, and we do all these types of things. And we're still trying to figure this out and trying to figure that out, instead of just allowing that which is the me to, you see, as you dwell deeper in this thing which is God, then the ego gets less and less, and the God gets more and more. That's what Jesus meant when he said, or John the Baptist meant when he said, I must decrease and he will increase. The ego goes down and the Christ within you goes up. I'm just going to do probably one thing in page 65 if you got it there. Okay? And Arjuna says to Krishna, I do not see. You don't? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Real quick. These are the 65s. Okay? Okay. So we'll handle those out. But as I'm reading here, and we'll just take a minute with it, Arjuna says, I do not see how can I reach this state of equanimity which you have. Not equanimity means calmness. How do I reach this state of calmness? And this is what Arjuna is asking. That's what you ask. Okay, I want to reveal the God that is me. I want the God that is me to live, to be alive. How can I reach this state which you have revealed? And what does Arjuna say? Now remember, this is 7,000 years ago. How do I do this? Owing to the restlessness of my mind. See that? Now, there's something written 7,000 years ago. You figure, what's this guy got to worry about? You know, they didn't have cars or income tax or, you know, the baseball games and all of this stuff. I mean, they wouldn't even know if they had high blood pressure. How would they know? Nobody's there, you know, blowing your arm up to see if the smoke comes out or what. I mean, nobody would know. How would they know? But what does he want? What's he restless about? This guy's living in a cave somewhere. What's he going to do? Oh, you wouldn't know who moved in the cave down the mountain. The whole mountain is shot. Look what happened to the mountain. Look, guess who moved. What does he want? What's he restless about? What was he thinking about? But here's the same feeling 7,000 years later, and there's this guy saying, hey, I can't. Do you know what he's saying to Krishna? I can't meditate. I'm having trouble meditating. All this stuff's going through my head. Now in the next verse, Krishna says he's got to go out and buy a pack of Kataro records or something. But here, look at 65 verse 2. My Lord, verily means true. The mind is fickle and turbulent, obstinate and strong, extremely difficult as the wind to control. 7,000 years ago, same thing. This guy is sitting there. Can you imagine this 7,000 years ago? Krishna's having a meditation section, and this guy's thinking of girls or something like that. Or rocking himself into oblivion, thinking of, something. But he couldn't meditate. So, I mean, the funny thing is, you get done with a Tuesday night, and some people say, geez, I had a hard time, and my mind is all over the place. Here's 7,000 years ago, this guy's saying the same thing. Exactly. So what's changed? See? And Lord Sri Krishna in 65:3 replies, doubtless, O mighty one, the mind is fickle and exceedingly difficult to restrain. But, O son of Kunti, with practice and renunciation, it can be done. See, practice, discipline, and renouncing all of the lower things of the mind. And basically, that was the title of the message tonight. If at first you don't succeed. I saw a cartoon, I don't know where it was, it says, if at first you don't succeed, you're fired. But practice, disciple yourself. Give up on the app. Doesn't mean you have to renounce going to the movies or renounce. It means renouncing that guilt and that ego that kills you. And realize, say, hey, I meditated, this is it, it got screwed up. What's the purpose? I've learned from this. This is not a mistake. It's a tremendous teaching and a tremendous step that I can move upward in my journey. And it is God. And this is the way God... Do you think when... God, has he ever stopped making mistakes? God's the one made this world. I mean, was this a shot of genius to have people running around with atomic bombs? And the one who's supposed to be his offspring, what happens to him? And what would happen if the guy came back again? This time it would be machine guns, but it would be the same result. Was this such a great thing? Could you imagine that God, if there was such a thing, someone would say, I don't think that was such a good idea. I mean, it's been an inferno ever since it was, people could get on it. I mean, the first guy picked up a club. What was it, Cro-Magnon man or something? And that's been it. Beating each other over the head for 40 million years, and a God's up there saying, look at the beautiful fakakta I made these people. Is this nice? It's a mess. So then what are you worrying about because you screwed something up? It's the same you that made this mess is still screwing things up. Figure that out. You're worrying because you made a mistake. You're the one that created this mess in the first place. Look at me, God. Look what you did. Do you know what I'm saying to you? You're the one that did it. Because all the books say you're living inside of Rose and Joe. You're the one responsible for all this crazy business. The gulls are dying, the harpoons, everybody's getting killed. Wars and all of this. You think this was such a good idea? Well, what do you think? You're the one. And you're still screwing things up and still getting a guilt feeling of it. You can read it about it in the Bible. You can read it in the Bible, and the Bible says, Moses says, you're fakakta up there with this. What are you doing here? And it says, God, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to do it. It's in the Bible. It says, God repented. Do you see what's trying to be conveyed to you? Is God functions through human beings. This is a tremendous secret being revealed to you. It really is. Gets you in a lot of trouble if you... But what do they know? There's God, don't even know who he is. I'm not God. Who are you? Because the ego is so strong, it gets in the middle, you don't know who you are, and the whole thing is... Okay. But with renunciation, it can be done. Look at 65:4. It is not possible, look at this, to attain self-realization if man does not know how to control himself. And ladies too. But for him who's striving by proper means learns such control, it is possible. Didn't say probable there. It says it is possible, you know. So now we get it. I just want you real quickly to stay with me. I know we've been here for a long time, but this isn't fair. What are you doing? I mean, where are you going to go? What's the big deal you got tonight? Big engagement tonight? You got a big thing you're going to do? What is God going to do on a Friday night? Think about that. Now we get into this. I just want to show you real quickly. You know, reincarnation and karma. And now I want you to remember this is 6,000 years ago and about 3,000 years before Jesus was born, okay? You remember Jesus said in Matthew 17:11, Elijah truly shall come. I'm not going to have you look it up. We could just talk about it. And then Jesus says, Elijah is come already, and the disciples understood that he meant John the Baptist, okay? Now, in 65:5, it says, he who fails to control himself, whose mind falls from spiritual contemplation. Now, Arjuna is asking Krishna this. Who attains not perfection, but retains his faith. What about him? What happened to this guy? Now, this is a 7,000-year question that all of you have asked a million times. Okay? We call people backsliders. Okay? Now, 65:6. Having failed in both, my Lord, is he without hope, like a riven cloud, having no support, lost on the spiritual road? What happens to this guy? Now, whose mind falls from spiritual contemplation. He doesn't meditate, but he retains his faith. Is he without hope? And Arjuna says, my Lord, you are worthy to solve this doubt once and for all. Because aside from you, there's nobody else competent to do this. So what about this? Your religion teaches a person goes to hell. Jesus says forgive 7 times 70. So what happened? Well, obviously Krishna agrees with Jesus. And Lord Sri Krishna replies in 66:1, my beloved child, there is no destruction for him either in this world or the next. No evil awaits him who treads the path of righteousness. Oh, but wait a minute now. That's not answering the question. Yeah, he's begging off the question here because the question really hasn't been fully addressed. Treading the path of righteousness is being considered as having God's direction, at least having a feeling for God. So that the question is not. But let's go to 66:2. Having reached the worlds where the righteous dwell, and having remained there for many years, he who has slipped away from the path of spirituality will be born again in the family of the pure, benevolent, and prosperous. See, there's a lot of hope. But I want you to look at the beauty of the plan. Please, look at the beauty of the plan. And you look at people and say, my God, what a miserable existence. Why could God allow something like that to happen? When it does happen, what is planned? What does nature do? He will be born again. And I want you to look at those 2 words, born again. And remember Jesus' words, you must be born again. Wow, that's really something. Must be born again. So spirit then would bring this person back into a new birth, into the spiritual things where he had once thrived, and all of you have once thrived there. All of us have once thrived there. Into the family, but look at 66:3. Or he may be born in the family of the wise sages, though a birth like this is indeed very difficult to obtain. You got to have MasterCard or Bank America. Very difficult. You know, what he's saying there, wise sages would be like as Elijah was born again, Elijah was born as John the Baptist. I mean, they had a particular thing to do. As Krishna was born again. See, Krishna was born 4 times. Black, yellow, red, and white. It's true. I mean, it's true as I know it can be true. That's the legend. So those are people, those are the ones who are in the higher realms. We'll just do this last one, then we will turn. Then the experience acquired in his former life will revive, and with its help, he will strive for perfection more eagerly than before. And when we talk about revivals, that's what revival really means. So we'll leave that go. There's a lot of interesting things, and we might want to, next time we come back and study the Bhagavad Gita, get involved in that. But what you heard tonight, which I think is very interesting to you and should be very encouraging for you, are words 7,000 years old that you ask today. And I would ask you to take out of this place, and for those of you, as you either turn the TV off or go on to the next one, take into yourself the things that I talked about with you tonight. And don't just brush them off or be offended by the fact that I said you are God. Think through the teachings of Jesus and the ancient teachings of Krishna, and then think of the implications of this, okay? The implications of the fact that every living being is God. And then as you understand this, what can happen if you'll say, I am now going to claim that truth, that I am God. I don't care. That it takes an awful lot of courage. That's what Jesus Christ had to do. He had to stand against the whole mob. It takes an awful lot of courage to stand against the religious principles of the day. But they have destroyed the planet. They have done horrible damage to the people of this planet. And now Jesus Christ had tried to get it through your head, just what is the extent of your godship. And as Krishna said, and if you'll dwell in the unity of this God and become this God and allow then this God to function. And it will happen. It will happen to you, but you have got to be willing to take this and not hide under the ego. And then as you go into meditation and make the decisions in your life, don't look at them as, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Look at it, I've been to meditation and now I'm going to let God create and create. And if the creation is not to your liking, learn from it. It is to His liking because you have karma to work out. You have something to learn. And so the creation that He has given you is to prosper you by learning. He knows exactly every time the decision is made, every creation that must come forth from you. Learn from it and say, it was not a failure. It was not wrong. It was absolutely right. It was what I needed. And then you begin to get into the individuation with the oneness of the Almighty. That is heavy-duty stuff that we went through tonight. And so I thank Spirit and God in me, and I am, for using this time of my own difficulties to bring me into a deeper understanding of who I am and what is me, the unity of life. Thank you.